In 1920, a woman in Smithfield, North Carolina, sat down and made a decision. Her husband had just died. He'd been the editor and half owner of the Smithfield Herald, a twice weekly newspaper that had been running since 1882. They'd been married 12 years, she had children, she had half ownership of a newspaper she'd never run, and she had a choice about what to do next. She could sell her shares, she could find a male editor to take over. It was 1920, and that's sort of what happened. She could step back and let someone else handle the business while she focused on what a widow in Johnston County in 1920 was expected to focus on. Instead, she walked into the office and started editing the paper. When people asked why, she had an answer ready. She was keeping the paper for the boys. Her sons would inherit it someday. She was just holding it together in the meantime. That's what she said. Here's what she actually did. I'm Joey, this is Joe Koyo, and this is the story of Renee Bingham Lassiter, the woman who ran the Smithfield Herald for over a decade, won the first journalism award the North Carolina Press Association ever gave, wrote a column that ran for 30 years, helped build the Johnston County Public Library, ran a women's club through the Depression, and described all of it as just keeping the paper for the boys. So first you need to understand what the Smithfield Herald was, and what it meant for a county to have one. The Herald was established in 1882 by F.T. Booker, E.G. Smith, and John W. Lassiter, no close relation to the family that would later run it for most of the 20th century. And the timing of its founding was not coincidental. The newspaper was started the same year that Smithfield acquired its first railroad, signaling the beginning of commercial growth for the Johnston County seat, which had not really advanced beyond courthouse village status since its incorporation in 1777. So think about it for a second. Smithfield was incorporated in 1777. For over 100 years, it was essentially a courthouse village, the place where legal matters got handled and people came to town on business. Then in 1882, the railroad arrived, and in the same year, so did the newspaper. The town was about to start growing, and someone had the sense to create an institution that would record what happened. That's what local newspapers do at their best. They are the memory of a place. They are the first draft of local history, the record of who was born and who died and who ran for office and who won, what burned down, what got built, what the weather did to the crops, where the tobacco market paid, what the county commissioners decided. Without the Herald, much of Johnston County's first half of the 20th century simply would not exist in a recoverable form. The Johnston County Heritage Center's searchable headlines database runs from 1885 to 2007. Researchers use it constantly. It is honestly irreplaceable. By 1920, the Herald had been running for 38 years. It was the oldest newspaper still operating in Johnston County. It had covered the end of Reconstruction, the rise of the tobacco market, the cotton mill boom, the disenfranchisement of black voters, World War I. It had a readership. It had a reputation, an institutional weight that a paper earns only over decades. And in 1920, the man running it died and left it to his wife. Renee Bingham was born in Smithfield. Her father and brother served as mayor of Smithfield. An uncle was a state legislator in the 1920s. She came from the kind of family that ran things. Y'all know the type. Not wealthy exactly, but connected, civic. The kind of family where children understood from early on that participation in public life was expected, not optional. She graduated in 1904 with the first class from Turlington Graded School, which later evolved from Turlington Institute, a leading college preparatory school in the eastern part of the state. She attended what is now UNC Greensboro for a year and then came home and taught school. She married Thomas James Lassiter in 1908. He was half owner and editor of the Herald, and for 12 years she was the editor's wife. Present, involved, paying attention, learning the institution from the inside without a title. Then in 1920, Thomas Lassiter died suddenly. He was not old. There was no succession plan. She entered journalism to keep the paper for the boys. That phrase, keep the paper for the boys, man, it is doing a lot of work. It tells you exactly what kind of claim a woman could make for herself in 1920 in a small southern town, and it tells you what she did with that claim that was available to her. She was not seizing a career opportunity. She was not fulfilling a long-held ambition. She was a widow, preserving a family asset for her children, and that was the story she told. That was the story the community could accept, and then she got to work. The Herald in 1920 was not an easy thing to run. It published twice a week, every week, without exception. It covered a county of 60,000 plus people, their elections and their crimes and their harvests and their church socials and their deaths. It had to be accurate because in a town where everybody knew everybody else, errors were not anonymous. It had to be trusted because the Herald's authority rested entirely on the community's confidence in it. And it had to be financially viable because newspapers do not run on civic spirit alone. Renee Lassiter had no journalism training. She had observation, intelligence, and 38 years of institutional momentum behind the paper she'd inherited, and she used every bit of it. 2 years after she took over in 1922 under editor Renee Lassiter, the Herald won an award as the best semi-weekly or weekly newspaper in the entire state, the first time the North Carolina Press Association had ever bestowed such an honor, and it went to the Herald. Let that settle. The North Carolina Press Association, which had existed since 1873, which represented newspapers across the entire state, created an award for best newspaper and gave the very first one to the Herald, a paper that was, at that moment, 2 years into being run by a widow who didn't really want to run it, according to what she said. She did not stop there. For approximately 30 years, her personal slants column appeared in every issue, twice a week, for 30 years. That is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 columns. Wide-ranging in subjects and clearly and simply expressing her personality and views of life, it was always popular with readers. She described Smithfield as she was growing up, interesting people and interesting books, community projects, her grandchildren, and often people in need of community help. Personal slants, not editor's notes, not publisher's corner, personal slants. A title that addressed exactly what it was, one person's way of seeing, offered twice a week to everyone in the county who picked up the paper. And she was using the paper to build things beyond the paper. Nothing was closer to her heart than library development, a public library for the town, and then for the county where projects she helped initiate and bring to reality. She had a platform, the oldest, most trusted newspaper in the county, and she used it to push for things that the county needed. She used her personal slants column to influence the thinking of every single person in the entire county. The library she helped campaign for through the Herald's pages is the same library that now holds her personal slants folder in its archives and helped make it a reality. She built the institution that houses the record of her work. Outside the paper, a charter member of the Smithfield Women's Club and of the Business and Professional Women's Club, she served as president of both. Highlights of her presidency from 1931 to 1933 were constructing a new club facility, the only building erected in Smithfield during the Depression year of 1932, sponsoring a new club for juniors, and conducting a night school at the local cotton mill. All these things she got backing from her fellow citizens and neighbors through the influence she had through the newspaper. The only building erected in Smithfield in 1932 was one that she thought needed to be built. While the county was in the depths of the worst economic crisis in American history, while she was also running a newspaper twice a week. Her son Thomas Jr. joined her in 1933 after his graduation from college. At that point, she had been running the Herald for 13 years through the Roaring Twenties, Prohibition, through the crash, and the Depression's darkest years. She had won the state's first journalism award, written hundreds of columns, built a library, run 2 women's organizations, and kept the county's institution of record alive and publishing through all of it. When Thomas Jr. arrived, she handed him primary editorial responsibility. She stayed. The column kept running. Thomas J. Lassiter Jr. eventually ran the Herald until 1980 when the Lassiter family sold it. His son Wingate served as a third-generation editor until 1994. The paper Renee held together for her boys became a 3-generation family institution, the kind of legacy that doesn't happen unless someone, at a critical moment, decides to stay when leaving would have been way easier. In 1954, sponsored by her local club, she was named North Carolina Mother of the Year. Now, not North Carolina Journalist of the Year, but not North Carolina Editor of the Year, Mother of the Year. She had kept the paper for the boys. The recognition matched the story she had always told her about herself. The Smithfield Herald today, it doesn't exist anymore. It died in 2017, bought by the News and Observer, and the way a lot of small town papers, so regrettably, are dying. But you can read about it at the Heritage Center. Search its headlines database from 1885 to 2007. I look at it, like on the regular to make these columns and make these podcasts. And you can browse digitized issues like I do on Digital NC going back to the 1880s. Every issue twice a week across more than a century. The record of a county's life assembled one edition at a time. Renee Lassiter ran it through 13 of those years. She ran it through Prohibition, Jazz Age, the Crash. She ran it well enough that everybody in the state said that she did it the best. And she ran it while telling everyone that she's just keeping it warm for somebody else. The Personal Slants folder at the Public Library of Johnston County in Smithfield holds 30 years of her columns. The library she helped build. Her voice is in there twice a week, slanting things in the direction she thought they should go, not just the paper, but life in general, and the county's direction, all influenced by her voice. She said she was keeping it for the boys. Well, she kept it all right. And that's Joe Coyo. And until next time, y'all, be good.